All right, everyone, let's get cracking on our first panel of the day. This is called the Hybrid Campus: What's Working and What's Next. So, who better to help me talk about this than some people who are working either actively within campuses or actively with different campuses? So, let's bring on Jimmy Singleton from AVISPL, Kelvin Thompson from the University of Louisville, Andrew Dorman from Diversified, and Lyle Waldron from the University of Trinidad and Tobago. What's up, guys? Welcome.
Hey,
And you.
Hey, howdy.
I would love to just have you each go around, talk a little bit about yourselves and your jobs. Jimmy, would you like to go first?
Sure. Yeah. So my name is Jimmy Singleton. I am the manager of state, local, and education for AVISPL. So I help campuses all over North America trying to help set standards and build out processes that make sense for higher education. I came out of higher education myself. I worked at the University of Southern California for 2 years as their manager of learning environments. So I use some of that knowledge to push forward on the integration side now.
Perfect. Andrew?
Hey, Andrew Dorman with Diversified, based out of the Philadelphia area. I've been an account executive with Diversified for a number of years, in the industry for well over 10. I work in the workplace side of things, focusing within the higher ed environment. Thank you for having me.
Awesome. Lyle?
hi, my name is Lyle Waldron. I am the manager of multimedia and audiovisual technologies. Sorry for the long title. At the University of Trinidad and Tobago. Yes, Steph, it requires a breath in between. Also doing my PhD right now, which is kind of fun. So that I'm actually taking a look into some of these things we're going to discuss today and see how we can apply some frameworks of sustainability in higher education. So it's been a long journey.
That's amazing. And last but certainly not least, Kelvin.
Hi, everybody. Kelvin Thompson. I serve as Vice Provost for Online Strategy and Teaching Innovation at the University of Louisville, where I've been almost 3 years after nearly 25 at the University of Central Florida. I'm co-editor of the Sage Handbook of Online Education, co-host of Topcast, the Teaching Online podcast, and originator of the OpenCourseWare Blend Kit course. Happy
Very
to be
cool.
here.
No, it's exciting. Y'all all have such a vast, different backgrounds. So I thought it would be very, very fun to have you all kind of on here and talk about where we're at when it comes to hybrid learning. So I'm just going to toss this out, and whoever wants to take this first question first can do that. From your vantage points, what do you think hybrid learning really means today? And how has that definition evolved since 2020? Because it definitely has evolved.
I'll start. In 2020, I was thinking about this. We were also reactionary to everything that was happening. As I just mentioned, I was in the AV industry for over 10 years, and I was having issues getting my daughter set up for success in streaming classes. So I think when I think about what's changed since 2020, I think about that it being reactionary versus the more expected now, right? And so we're no longer just like streaming classes. It's more of an extension of the classroom environment itself, right? The kind of blending of the physical and digital. But I'd love to hear what everyone has their experience has been like since then. That's just been my personal observation.
Yeah, I would add to that. I mean, I think the expectations have changed from the student body as well as the faculty that are doing it. Less about trying to make something work and now how to make it work really well for an intended purpose, right? If it's a college, community college, for example, right? Most of their students are working parents. If their child is sick, do they miss class, or do they have an opportunity to take that class remotely? And so the expectation is different around what's available to them.
I'll bring kind of a yes and perspective. I think prior to 2020, we would have probably used hybrid fairly interchangeably with the word or the phrase blended learning, and it would have been more like saying pop or soda or Coke. I think since 2020, there's been a lot of dual mode simulcast pseudo high flex approaches, where it is more about, oh, is this just sort of a affordance that's sort of transparent? And I worry a little bit that there's confusion, perhaps, about, and then I would say also hybrid gets used in a slightly different manner still today to speak of general hybridity, not unlike how we speak about remote work or return to the office in person versus hybrid approaches. So the hybridity of online course taking, blended learning course taking in person, and those dual mode simulcast approaches. So I think it's a wide field.
It gets even wider, and this is why I wanted to defer to Kelvin there. My concern really is the sustainability of most of this, because I think Jimmy said it best. It was a let's see what we could do, make it work approach for COVID. And there seems to oftentimes be a disconnect from the core technical side of this and the pedagogical side, which at the end of the day is the core business function. And I know, Kelvin, we hate the word business in higher ed, but it is the core business function of higher education. So how are we really addressing those pedagogical needs, those teaching and learning needs through technology? If you drill down into hybrid, just in our AV space, that classroom and that ability to become one with the virtual space and all things therein, if it's a lecture capture system that's somehow, in there, and the live synchronous stuff, I'm really concerned that we've now normalized a reasonable expectation, I would add, in a perfect world, that if I'm a student, I can attend anywhere, anytime, anyhow. In the live session with Steph, I can come back to the YouTube stream later on, because that is what life is like now at the civilian stage. But can universities, in the current realities that we have, finance and sustain this? And for me, it's just really, it's going to answer the question, what is this going to look like in the future?
Yeah.
Well, and I would add to that, I was thinking, to your point about students being able to attend pretty much any university, regardless of where they are. Universities, well, this, I will be quick to get us completely off topic, so I apologize. But the university, it's almost that they have to start thinking of the digital branding, because when prospective students start, instead of sitting in on classes, they'll be able to sit in on any class throughout the country, right? Having a good experience, again, extending that classroom or bridging those two, the physical and the digital, being able to have a great experience from a remote standpoint will mean a lot to prospective students, which almost, and it's weird because we talk about digital branding all the time in the corporate, not so much in the higher ed. And I wonder if that's going to become something that we start to discuss about what that digital branding experience is like during these coursework.
So a quick extension to Andrew's point there, and I want to throw this out in more of a visionary sense and intangible. What about the hybrid one day that allows Kelvin's institution to have a class, a traditional type class, with a school that's 10 states away, that's 2 times a week? Because his faculty count is going down, he has to get that student input up. He has to show that ability to deliver that content and that true specialized experience that is differentiated in a world where we have generations being born into AI. So I want to be the first person for the AI drinking game. I apologize. Well, that's the thesis thing talking there. So Steph, yeah, I mean, the future of hybrid is interesting, because what I see from industry side and dealing with all of my industry friends, they're happy because there are a lot of cameras, a lot of tech, a lot of switchers, AV over IP. Somewhere in that source, the pedagogical and teaching and learning side is like, I wrote about this, I think in 2009, I published a paper on technology oriented or learning driven. I was really just asking that question, and I'm now asking this for what the new buzzword is, because we're very buzzwordy in higher ed. We're now all about hybrid. Right? It used to be flipped, and then it was this other thing, and it's now we're hybrid. What does that mean? And what does it mean in terms of delivering quality, engaging content that
Right.
students are going to come to your school. Because as Andrew just said, if it's all ones and zeros, cameras and screens, then the difference is going to be an exchange rate. And I can guarantee you schools that are English speaking all over the world that can deliver high quality education, you're going to get your students.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Real hybrid is coming.
Mm-hmm.
All right, I'm going to ask the next question. So, if you guys could think of like an example of one deployment or one redesign at your university, if you work for a university, that taught you something kind of unexpected about how students or faculty actually use a hybrid space like that, I think that that would be really valuable for the audience to hear a little bit about that.
Mm-hmm.
And Kelvin, I'll defer to you again.
Well, that's kind and daunting. The one that comes to mind, relevant to the sort of the thread of this conversation, was my former institution's not haphazard, considered quick response to sort of the ongoing pandemic response in, I think, as early as summer 2020 into fall 2020 and beyond. And that response was something we called blend flex.
Okay.
And we had a fair amount of investment already, and technology-enabled classroom infrastructure, lots of history and modality nuances, and great teams and all that, and familiarity with the work of like Brian Beatty and the HighFlex stuff that goes back into the early 2010s and so forth. And it sort of flopped, really. And I'm sure it works for somebody, but even with all of that careful, thinking it through, it just ended up being exhausting for the faculty involved, attending to the dual modalities.
Right.
And it was still despite everything I said, all those affordances, very difficult to communicate clearly with students what the expectations really were. So I would think that we were probably set up about as well as anybody to see that rise to the occasion, and it didn't. So it's sort of, I hate sounding like this, but it sort of made me a little bit more conservative in the digital modality space. Really thinking through intentional course design and modality affordances, and being deliberate in a cohort sense. I'm sure it can work well. I just haven't quite seen it work sustainably, to use Lyle's word, sustainably well yet.
Yeah. Wow. Yeah. This is why Kelvin and I decided to do the PhD, right? It's these same questions that I'm trying to answer myself. Specific to like a system design principle stuff, I'm not rigid, but I'm about to say something that's going to make the audience seem that, well, he's stuck in his ways. Since like 2008, when before there was Infocom, we also had Educom, and we used to do those things in those days. Kelvin can identify, he can remember, right? So I've been privileged enough to come up there and present on how to design classrooms on a budget, like through the whole UBTech series of days over to now. Those things were always astounding for me as an information exchange, more than anything else. Even though they were workshops and I was guiding the course, I've always found the design considerations that some schools in the States use to be so interesting, because I recognize that they were born of excessive resources. Now, I need to kind of situate very quickly, Kelvin laughs. I need to situate quickly what I mean by that. The smallest school that I could think of sometimes in the States, they still have sometimes like 10 times the budget of one of our schools down here, just based on exchange rate. So when I think about like a design method that has kind of worked, a design approach that has worked for us, I've been preaching since then that using a modular design language, it's something that we can apply in the AV realm. All of our systems are effectively made up of a series of subsystems, some of which could be replaced, some of which could be redesigned, some of which could be expanded. Sound as a subsystem. I mean, just think speakers, not to get too weedsy and too nerdy. This room may need 4, but that room could get 6, and this room could get 8, but functionally it's the same core. Doing that has really allowed us to try to drive design costs down, sometimes into percentiles of what other schools spend. And because of that, I've really been able to like get to the second part of that question you're asking, which is the thing that surprised me the most in terms of student use, is if I leave this up to students, everybody just wants the cameras off. So what does that mean for that video camera, that the optics camera that I just spent, blew half my budget on? But it underscores something that we speak about in the trades all the time, which I think is so important. Your conference call, your high flex room is only going to be as good as your audio. So if I have to throw the baby, the bath water, and the bath in there, I'm getting my hands on that MXA 920 array. I'm getting my hands on that Sennheiser array. I'm getting my hands on that new rAVe array. I'm going to make sure that every student can be heard, because Jimmy's in the back and he has a question, and his question was the question that everybody was afraid to ask. That Steph is online and she doesn't want to ask because she doesn't want to annoy people and she's self-conscious of her voice, and like how all that psychology stuff goes. So that for me was really the kicker, is that while I have a fiduciary duty, Kelvin, and I can't just go, okay, well, then let's rip the cameras out and just make the audio streaming room. I still have to do, a proper VIXA CTS set of calculations. I'm just really amazed. Even in my own student experience now, I hate online classes. Like, I can't say that more, right? I've been on this laptop since 8 this morning. It is 2 o'clock now. And at 4 o'clock, I have to go back on the laptop for a class at 4:30. No, thankfully today I have in person. And you're gonna realize that yes, there was some of our clients, some of our students, I don't want to call them kids because they're adults. They did grow up in this weird social age, but we're also kind of coming back into blossoming into this age of connection. And there's a question in the chat about, when is this all going to go digital? We're probably going to get to that, Steph, but I could posit my answer now. Never. There are some things that we just need to be there for, and we're probably going to tease that out in a while. So I'll leave that there.
Yeah. Jimmy, Andrew, I'm interested to see like y'all's perspectives on this, because kind of to Kelvin's point earlier, if something just seems too clunky, the instructor and the students are just like not going to touch it. So how can like IT and AV teams make these systems more intuitive for those instructors who might be like hesitant or overwhelmed by using a system that just seems like it's too much?
Yeah, I can kind of start in that one. I think simplicity is always like the name of the game, right? Everyone's like, I want to walk in. I heard this all the time, right? I want to walk in, I want to open my laptop, and I want to start a class. And I'm like, that's great. That's what your support teams want too, because they would stop getting calls, right? They wouldn't have to come in and try and run this for you. But there is a lack of, being able to do that without a ton of automation behind it, right? So automation from the integration perspective, right, is like, how much can we possibly automate into this touch panel or into this classroom experience, so that really all they have to do is click start class and plug in a laptop or use in-house computer or whatever it may be. But how can we take as many steps away as possible before they get to the actual teaching portion of the class? And that's, I think, what we're looking for on the integration side, is to how can we help deliver that? And then also with all of the other constraints of that comes with budget, right? More automation means more money. All those things that get involved in, more button pushes are cheaper than us taking those button pushes out of the way.
Yeah, I would largely agree. Or be for me to add a little bit of controversy. I agree that simplicity is a key component. I think that in my experience, it's less about making things as simple as possible and more about making things as predictable as possible for them. Predictability and trust is what drives adoption in the rooms. The example that I noticed, I have a higher ed client who doesn't have a single MTR in their space. They don't want panels. They don't want push to join, any of that. What they do is they put the Nooks inside all of the classrooms and just run the Teams client.
Teams.
Far more complex than a single button to push. And this is a university that has plenty of money for premium products and all of that. The reason that they don't, though, is because we all know the Teams client. They all know the Teams client.
Yeah.
It's very predictable for them to use it, and they trust that when they drag a file in from the SharePoint to the Teams environment, they know that language, they know that workflow.
Mm-hmm.
I think simplicity is certainly a great drives predictability. But I think that as long as we focus on understanding the client, understanding what their workflow is, and making decisions that drive trust, then I think that we kind of set them up better for success in that way.
And kind of the same question, but just like differently framed. How do you, each of you, think that we should balance technology innovation with like pedagogy and making sure that technology truly enhances learning instead of just adding complexity? Because saying like, we talk about this idea of simplicity a lot, but like, what does even simplicity mean?
So
Whoever wants to take that first. I know that's a huge one.
I keep trying to go last because I'm so verbose. I apologize in advance, but I can't put Kelvin on the spot twice. Here's the thing: I'm from the Don Norman School of Design. I believe his design book is literally my Bible. I've said that so many times at session, at conference. It's hilarious. I say that because this is the ye-old chicken and the egg story. Which one comes first?
Mm-hmm.
I think when we get back, this is actually very much attached to what Andrew was just saying. When we get back to it, I actually think I would lean closer to Andrew in terms of consistency. But I think many times when I engage with North American schools and tech teams, I hear an abstraction from the classroom completely. The client is often never the actual person who's fumbling with some books and a laptop or a tablet under their arm. We've not taken any time to do data collection, just in observation. And sometimes for some of us who've been out of a classroom for so long that we don't really have a clue of what it is to be a student on one side, receiving the content, or a faculty member having to stand there with their own psychology, egos, emotions, and everything else, and look like an idiot in front of 80 people who are all tech screen junkies. Nobody wants, that in between. I don't want to be the student with some unk in front of me or auntie who is a technology auntie who has no idea what she's doing. So I'm going to be on my phone. I'm going to check out. So not only does it drive down adoption, I think, to go tech first pedagogy after, I think it also really seriously impacts the student success side, which at the end of the day in higher education is the margin. Every university would love to say they have 100% graduation rate in the 90-something percentile. But how do we do that if nobody's connecting because technology went from being a facilitating agent, Andrew, to being a barrier? So that consistency is important because it does help the lecturers with confidence and adoption. But what I found is the thing that helps even more is if we focus on the process of design, not tech per se, but design around understanding that all we do, all of us, even if I was working for an ADI, I'm going to get into Kelvin's head to understand, what do you mean by pedagogy? What do you all do as teachers? Instead of, and I'm going back to my old document here, my old published paper, instead of putting a box of technology there and saying, look, my box of technology at my school, we have more money, so I have a fancier box than this other school. That's going to be really cool, right? And all the kids have PS5s, don't care. They don't care. There is nothing that we can offer, and I'm saying this as 45-year-old autistic Lyle who's just trapped a 14-year-old trapped in a 45-year-old man. We don't care. There's nothing cool about any of this to those kids. So how do we get there? How do we reach it? How do we support those faculty members? I think it really comes down to just that. I think this is an unanswered question, but I will say this to close very, very quickly. I think, again, because of the current economics and climate around higher education globally, but specifically in North America, you all are now going to be forced to do that. Because I think the fun times are done in terms of just being able to have gobs of money. So behind 32 matrix switches to fix it.
Yeah, I would agree. I think there's a truly like blended approach that you have to take, right? Because we're constantly technology side, we're pushing to innovate more, right? We want them to innovate. We want people to adopt it more. So we put in things to take them a step that way. And then we get a lot of pushback from faculty who've been doing it for 40 years, right? They're still using the same box of chalk they bought when they first started teaching. And so they're not, they're not pulling back from that modality of teaching. And I think of it like when active learning was introduced, right? We put wheels on chairs. And we were like, it's an active classroom. Get after it, And and then nobody moved, right? Everyone just sat still, and it was like the same exact class that was being taught. And it's because no one had that conversation on the instructional technology side to really talk about how do we make an active classroom? How do we make students move and collaborate with each other outside of just telling them there's wheels on chairs, right? And the same thing with hybrid learning, right? Like if we don't have that conversation about pedagogy and how the teaching actually changes, then no one's going to adopt it. So it's kind of a mixed balance of both. I think
yeah.
Well, look, I mean, it does not speak of the elephant in the room, as was mentioned earlier. AI may change all of it. I mean, it may change the very paradigm of pedagogy when we go from potentially a traditional lecture in front of a room or online. Even the lecturer themselves may be the one that is remote. Maybe the learning doesn't even happen in the room, and the room is where people come in for any number of different use cases, and the room becomes some kind of an amalgam of small group collaboration spaces. But then I don't know, maybe it can't be used for the math class because it needs to be updated for the cinema class, and it needs a cinema scale projector in it. But at the end of the day, I think that is, I mean, Lyle and Kelvin, the AV is the most visible force on campus, and yet also the most invisible. And nobody sees it. Nobody sees this group. Nobody sees this technology, and yet it's in front of them all day, right? For all of us. And I think if we maintain that, while innovation is important, it should remain that invisible part, so that it is not getting in the way of the pedagogy, of the learning, of the active learning, even whether they're on rolling chairs or not.
Yes.
Kelvin, I have one that from the audience that I want to toss to you first. And Lyle kind of hinted at this earlier. Do we think here that classroom education will go away in person and that we'll all go to distance learning ever?
I don't think so.
Yeah.
I don't think so. I mean, there's times that I think we're tilted toward this possible future or that possible future. It just seems like to me that although Andrew's right, AI is sort of the spoiler of the moment, and it's really difficult to predict the future, what kind of disruption will emerge. But in recent years, especially, I've felt like of all the forces that are among us, the concentration, the commonality seems to be one shape or another that involves some kind of an in-person and some kind of an online digital mediated experience, whether that's at the course level or whether that's at the experience level, right? I mean, you could have experiences that are quite a lot digital and mediated, but grounded in some kind of in-person connection experience as well. I can't tell you exactly how that'll play out. I did appreciate it's now 2 or maybe 3, 4 years old, but Dr. Tanya Houston from the University of Wisconsin-Milwaukee put a piece out with Every Learner Everywhere about the blended higher ed institution of the future. And I think there's some really good conceptual thinking there. But even that, I don't think anticipated artificial intelligence.
I mean, to me, the answer is no. It's never all going to go in any direction. I think there's a part, and this is kind of philosophical for me. I think there's a part of being human that is important. And we're kind of already seeing what the effects are of removing humanity. And I apologize to you, audience. This is so philosophical. Removing humanity and just leaving tech to its own ends. It does not work well for us. See social media, see Amazon's job cuts like last night. It's not working out. It helps for me sometimes to be in a room because right now we're all on screens and we're all framed up. And I'm just framed to look like I'm tall. Am I tall? I don't know. Maybe Jimmy's 7'4". Maybe he's, Wendy size. I don't know. And there's a thing about that when we all get in the room and Andrew sees Lyle and we see Kelvin and we see Steph. There's something in all of those differences while at the same time we're all focused on the same line of study. And we all bring these different cognitive ideas. There's something about that in-person portion that actually helps to act as a catalyst to learning that we just are not going to get from screens. No, we're not going to beat the convenience of asynchronous. We're never going to do that, right? I'm a podcast guy myself. I mean, who doesn't have a podcast at this point? Yeah. You get to listen when you want to. It's great. But there is something about, all 6 or 5 of us getting together here and these people in the chat. And this is not even us in real life. So, we meet once a year for Infocom. We meet once a year for EduCause. It's kind of the same thing with kids in the classrooms and faculty. But then there are also disciplines that are going to become far more important in this age of AI, whether it's a bubble or not. There are going to be some disciplines that are going to require Andrew and I to sit next to each other on a bench with our hands in a thing. Whatever that thing is, if it's us in white suits making a silicon wafer make sense for the AI overlords, we still have to get ourselves together for a thing. So no, it's not going to just all go to ones and zeros.
Yeah.
I think. Opinion. Op-ed.
Fair. Jimmy, Andrew, anything to add to that one?
I would just say I think students and faculty decide, right? If you're sitting in a 400-person seat lecture hall and the experience is the same as you sitting at home on your computer, why go into a classroom, right? And we've seen that with students, right? There's no need to be in there because they're just listening to a PowerPoint and getting yelled at by someone for an hour and a half. But if there's a reason to be in a classroom, like Lyle said, right? If there's a reason to get involved, technical and trade learning is so popular now. There's a reason to be in person and actually have your hands physically on stuff. That'll never go away, I don't think.
Yeah, I would agree that I remember my daughter was working on a school project, or no, it wasn't even a school project, but she was talking to her friends, and this was in elementary school, mind you. She was talking to her friends while they were playing Minecraft or something like that together, but about what they had been working on in class that day, and they essentially, without knowing it, they had extended what they were learning that day in this digital environment collaboratively together as they were building a house or whatever it was that they were building. And I just kind of sat there and I was like, well, I think this, I mean, this, and listen, I mean, Lyle and I think we park our cars in the same garage on this, that I believe, I mean, I sell technology for a living so that people don't have to travel. And yet if I have an important meeting, I'm going to go to it in person because I truly believe, spiritual or not, that there is some kind of energy that connects all of us together, and that just cannot transcend the barrier, the medium of technology. I think as a species, just evolutionarily speaking, we do want to be around others. I think that will, and so in harmony with Jimmy's point, if there is a reason to be in the room, I think people will be attracted to that. And that's why having rooms that, whether it's collaboration, whether you're doing all your learning through AI and it's in podcast form or anime form or whatever form that you choose to, because that's how you learn best, but then applying what you learn in groups or with others in the room in person, I think I suspect that's at least going to be kind of at the forefront for a while. Will it end up being the long-term solution for higher ed? I'm not sure, but I got to think we're going to try it.
Yeah, I
Absolutely.
took a note, Steph, that technology is never defeated. So as much as I just went on my soapbox, let's be real now, right? As rAVe people,
Yeah.
we love Apple, we hate Apple. As soon as Apple drops some AR glasses, we may never need a projector again. Who knows? I mean, like really, this is gonna get
Listen,
crazy.
I considered joining on my thing today. I was like, yeah, I was talking to my boss. I was like, I should just join with my persona today.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. Okay. So I hate to cut this
Oh God.
short. But okay, I'm going to ask each of you to go around, give me some final thoughts, and then tell me where we can find you online and more about your companies or institutions online. Kelvin, will you start us off?
Sure. And I was kind of primed a little bit by that scintillating last exchange that bounced around between Jimmy and Andrew and Lyle. I've been on this kick lately, so forgive me, but I think what transcends like the in-person thing even is the human connection thing. That's where we all need to be investing our time. I might differ a little bit with Andrew because I do believe that you can still foster human connection in a technology-mediated context if you're really intentional and designed well, but it's the humanity that we need to lean into. That's where we need to cultivate skills because just being in a room won't do it by itself.
Yeah.
We're going to have to be intentional. You can find me on LinkedIn, Dr. Kelvin, like Kevin with an L in the middle, Dr. Kelvin Thompson, the Topcast, the Teaching Online podcast, the Lift, Insights and Inspiration for the work of academic innovation, digital learning, and leading, the newsletter. If you Google any of that stuff, you'll find me, connect. Love to share ideas with you.
Wonderful. Jimmy?
Yeah, my final thoughts would be get out there and build spaces that people want to come into, and make spaces that people really enjoy connecting with each other in, and then make them also available to do things digitally as well. I can be found on LinkedIn. That's probably the best place to get in touch with me. Just Jimmy Singleton, and then avispl.com or your local AVISPL rep can always connect you with me.
Amazing. Andrew?
Yeah, I think that overall, the extension of the classroom in the hybrid environment is what's going to drive success for it. As the primary focus, how do we not just stream our classes, but truly extend it and blend that digital and physical environment for any participant. I think as long as we keep clear eyes on that, then those will drive the design decisions naturally. You can find me on LinkedIn, Andrew Dorman, Dorman. I encourage you to go to onediversified.com, ONE. Check us out, and I look forward to speaking further.
Amazing. And last but most certainly not least, Lyle.
Hey, folks. So sad that we have to go. This was so much fun. I think my one thought is, and it's something that's been bouncing in my head since a couple of years now, is I want to challenge everybody to design sustainably. I don't mean lead and going green. I mean sustainably thinking about the fact that you have staff that are right now overstretched. That I've heard from people who've had strokes and heart attacks and are still trying to run AV from hospital beds. So let's remember the reason we're no longer tilling in fields with cows and oxen is because we had tech. So the aim of tech really wasn't to make this harder for us. So let's try to find ways that we could design these systems to be managed, maintained, and secured in sustainable ways, in addition to all of the engagement things that we spoke about. I'm trying to go back to earth, apparently. I'm turning into a hippie. So I am on LinkedIn, but I check it like once every 6 months to keep the account active. If you need to get me, let's go with the original social media. My phone number is 868-683-2442. You can get me on WhatsApp, on iMessage, and yes, you can call me. And yes, I've been doing that now, Steph, for about 15 years, as scary as it is for most people to hear. Just message or call me. I'm not doing social right now.
Amazing. Amazing. Well, you all are amazing. Thank you so much for your time and sharing your afternoons with me and for being part of Launch Week 12. I appreciate you guys.
Awesome.
Thank you.
Pleasure.
It was a pleasure.